What's going on, guys? This is AndrewChicken and welcome back to another video. Inara is one of the strongest tanks in Paladins and is one of the toughest champions to kill when played correctly. In this video, I'll be showing some of the loadout tips, items, and techniques you can use to become better at this juggernaut of a champion. I'll also be going over each of her talents and in which situation each talent would be best. With a bit of practice, strong loadouts for any situation you encounter, and these tips in mind, you can become an unstoppable force on the objective. So, without further ado, here is how to play Inara in Paladins. Inara has two very strong talents for withstanding pressure on the objective, Mother's Grace and Treacherous Ground. Mother's Grace grants her crowd control immunity and 20% increased damage reduction while in Earthen Guard, which is great if the enemy team has a lot of crowd control abilities or DPS. Building a loadout for this talent revolves heavily around her Earthen Guard since you'll want to have it up for as long as possible. Putting both Geomancer and Rolling Stones in her loadout at high levels will reduce the cooldown of Earthen Guard by over 50% of its base 10-second cooldown if you get an elimination each time you use Earthen Guard. And the more eliminations you score, the more you'll be able to just sit in your Earthen Guard and laugh while the enemy's bullets, stuns, and knockbacks just bounce off. Sheer and Stone Bulwark are also good cards to have in this loadout because they let you heal while in Earthen Guard and get ammo whenever you activate it. And then the filler card is really just personal preference. I like having the extra health from Steadfast, but other cards that buff your Warder's Field or Impasse would also help here. This talent is great if there's a lot of crowd control on the enemy team, but if there's little to no crowd control, it isn't the best talent to pick up. Treacherous Ground, on the other hand, is a great talent to use if there's not too much crowd control on the enemy team to be a big deal, and there's one or more tanks on the enemy team that have some form of movement ability, since this talent cripples anyone who steps in the Warder's Field. If you're going against Torvald or another Inara, it isn't the best idea since that cripple will be completely useless on someone who has no movement ability, but tanks that rely on their movement abilities such as Ruckus or Makoa are great to use this talent against. For this talent, you want to build a loadout that plays around the Warder's Field ability, with cards such as Standing Stones and Sacred Ground in your loadout so you can have Warder's Field up more often and gain damage reduction while standing in it. Rolling Stones is good in this loadout once more for reducing the cooldown of Warder's Field even further whenever you get a kill. If you do use Sacred Ground in your loadout, you become a bit more sedentary since you have to stand in your Warder's Field to receive the damage reduction bonus, but since it covers the entire objective of any siege map in the game with the exception of Ascension Peak, this isn't really an issue. Inara's Tremor talent is a really interesting talent if you're looking for a more mobile Inara. By reducing the cooldown of Impasse by 70%, you can use her wall as a movement ability in conjunction with a summit card at level 5, which sends her flying high into the sky with only about a 5-second cooldown. While this loadout and playstyle isn't the best there is for Inara, it can still be really fun to play, and allows her to use her ult to its maximum potential by dropping it on enemies from the sky where they least expect it. Inara's last talent, Wrath of the Stegala, is her least used from what I've seen, and is definitely weaker than Mother's Grace or Warder's Field. However, it does have its uses. If you find yourself in a situation where the enemy team has very little crowd control and no tank to cripple with Treacherous Ground, this talent could come in handy if you want to supplement your team's damage even further. This is an extremely high skill talent though, because you have to have precise aim and need to be comfortable with the timing of Inara's weapon to get the bonus damage consistently. If even one of your stones miss your target or hit someone else, you don't get the bonus damage, so I wouldn't use this talent unless you're really used to Inara's interesting weapon. There are a few cards that are good to put into a loadout for this talent though. Sheer and Lodestone both give you ammo whenever you activate Earthen Guard or Warder's Field, which can help you ignore her lengthy reload time and secure kills more effectively. You can also put the Living Stone and Whetstone cards into her loadout if you want to directly shorten her reload time, but I prefer to opt for some general cooldown reduction cards like Geomancer and Rolling Stones instead. There aren't too many circumstances where you'd want to choose this talent in loadout over any of your other talents though, so you don't even really need a loadout for this talent unless you want to give it a try. It's also important to be prepared for when your team decides to be selfish and not pick a healer. Having a self-sustain loadout for when you don't have a very good support or just want additional healing to supplement what you're getting already is a really good idea and can make you a lot harder to kill. There are 3 cards that you can use to heal yourself in your loadout: Caretaker, Stone Bulwark, and Crag, which heal you in your Warder's Field, Earthen Guard, and when putting up your Impasse respectively. Putting these cards in your self-sustain loadout at a fairly high level is really helpful, and having some damage reduction from Sacred Ground is also good to have. You could put in a cooldown reduction card in your loadout to help you heal more often, but I prefer having the extra health from Steadfast. Items are extremely important things to consider for each champion when playing a round of Paladins, and Inara is no exception. Inara's most important items are the utility items, because they can completely define her playstyle for the round. Master Writing and Chronos both have completely different effects on the strategy you employ during the round. Inara is a defensive tank, similar to Barrack. She has no movement ability, and all of her abilities are based around her standing on the objective or payload and preventing anyone else from getting on it. Picking up Master Riding is good if you want to try and zone out the other tanks from taking the objective before they've even had a chance to get on it. But if you opt for Chronos instead, you can't effectively wall off the entrance to the objective before the enemy gets there, and you'll have to fight off the enemy tank, but will have an easier time doing so because you'll have reduced cooldowns. Most of the time, I pick up Master Riding, and if the enemy tank also has Master Riding, then getting Master Riding is an absolute necessity for Inara so she can meet the enemy tank at the objective instead of having to try and take it back from the tank who's already there. Since Inara's weapon isn't as easy to use as other weapons, like Makoa's cannon or Ruckus' miniguns, the offensive items aren't as important when playing Inara, and Life Rip makes absolutely no sense with her low DPS weapon. Either Haven or Blast Shields would work great with Inara, but don't go for Resilience if you're using Mother's Grace, because it's completely redundant with a maximum CC immunity from her talent. Inara's kit is very versatile and can be used in some combos to trap an enemy or move around. One of the nastiest techniques that works best with Treacherous Ground is to place down the Warder's Field, crippling an enemy champion, and then placing an impasse in the direction they're trying to flee so there's no way to escape. Most of the time, the enemy stuck in this trap just dies, and it's a really mean way to secure kills and give your team an advantage on the point. Even without the Tremor loadout I mentioned earlier, Inara's Wall can still be used as a movement ability to reach some ledges more quickly than going around an obstacle or going up some stairs farther away. By activating it underneath yourself, you can put Inara on top of the wall so she can walk onto a higher ledge, or, in the case of the Tremor loadout, send her flying through the sky so she can rain down rocks on her enemies. Inara's impasse is a virtually impenetrable barricade, but it needs to be used properly to be utilized for its maximum potential. While enemies can't shoot or move through it, neither can you or your allies. So if someone on your team is chasing a low target and you put your wall up, blocking them off, you're going to have a very angry teammate and will be letting the enemy escape and heal themselves. The same goes for if your teammate is trying to escape a group of enemies because they overextended and you wall them off before they are on your side of the wall. Dooming a teammate like that is the worst thing you can do with Inara's impasse because we're turning a fair 5v5 into a 4v5 in the enemy team's favor. Walling a teammate off, whether they're trying to escape an enemy or chase them, is a horrible mistake you want to try and avoid. You also want to keep in mind where optimal places to put a wall are. Placing an impasse in the middle of an open area isn't exactly the best plan because the enemy team can just go around it. You either want to wall off an enemy line of sight so they either have to move to a less favorable position or wait until your wall falls, or wall off a doorway where the enemies will be unable to access the objective or payload at all and have to spend time or a movement ability entering from a riskier area. A great example of this is the underpass of Serpent Beach, where a lot of frontliners try and rush the point. If you pick up Master Riding and reach the objective first, you can wall off that area and force a tank to attack from one of the flank routes where your team is waiting to kill them. Mastering Inara's wall is one of the most important things to do to become an effective Inara player. So anyways, that's the end of this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and if this video helped you get better at Inara and learn more about her, then be sure to leave a like and comment down below what top 5 champion tutorial or gameplay you'd like to see me do next. Also, be sure to join my Discord server using the code in the description. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.